have made it to Stu and the Nunn, an online radio show that looks to inform, educate, and hopefully make you laugh. Stu and the Nunn is a show focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on our show chat room, via our Facebook page, and on Twitter. Like to thank those who make this show possible and allow us to bring it to you. Our show sponsors are Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. And that's it, everyone. Welcome to another episode 217 of Stu and the Nunn here on this August 27th. It seems like just yesterday we were going, holy crap, it's already July. And now we are on the last episode in the month of August. We are rolling into September. The end of summer. It's Labor Day weekend, the kind of end of summer weekend rolling it coming up. And with my brother from another mother, I am in the northern studio where it is a cool 73 degrees. And joined by my buddy Toby in the southern studio. What's happening, brother?
Well, you know, it's a balmy 84 right now.
And I bet it's balmy. I bet it's balmy.
It's a sauna out there. No, it's nice. It's not too bad here. I'm very fortunate and that I'm in Central Texas, Georgetown to be specific. I represent the GTX, but man, big ups and prayers and shout outs and concerns and all that for everybody in the path of this storm. And you know, been trying to watch it and, you know, pay attention and, you know, see if there's a need. But man, you know, these things happen. They seem to happen.
Yeah.
So like
Cajun Navy I think is already back is in action and doing their things. I'm sure
closer to home this time. So.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, big prayers going out for those folks. What a monster wallop. I'm not sure it got my wife and I were talking about this earlier. Not sure it got the coverage it should have been or normally does. I mean, I didn't even see Jim Cantori down. I don't know if it was too big for him to even show up, but I didn't see any footage of that dude down there getting blown around. But I guess with everything that's going on, it just the 24-hour news outlets, you know, can only dedicate just a couple of minutes out of their 24 hours to something like this that is just ravaging the state of Louisiana and parts of Texas and now in Arkansas.
And let's just touch on that real fast. You know, like we don't have to dwell too much on like wishing them well because if they were smart, they won't be listening or watching us right now because they're somewhere where they're not supposed to be. I mean, where they're supposed to be. If they are sitting at their house listening to us, they're probably making some bad choices. So. But this isn't the first time in the past little bit, you know, like a huge landborne, I'm trying to think of the name of it, hurricane hit the Midwest. Missouri and Iowa and somewhere else. I'm missing it. What's the name of that storm?
Ohio, the one that went up there, wiped out the cornfields.
Yeah, and it just like wrecked a whole bunch of places. it's you know, zero coverage.
Yeah.
Like everyone's like focused on other things, and I understand because like if it bleeds, it leads. But Chris, we the Austin area, we are north of there. I'm answering a question in the chat room, uh, and north of Austin, a little town called Georgetown. But yeah, no, like so. I'm on the part of Texas that's praying for rain right now, and hoping because we've been got some drought-like conditions. You know, my wife, she pays attention to the water in all extremities. So
She
like,
does do that.
hopefully, we get a little bit, and hopefully everyone's safe. But
Yep.
it's not surprising that people are focused on other things than weather.
You know what I'm focused on is this awesome looking Kermode shirt that I'm wearing, which
Man,
I
that's
don't
not
wear.
bad.
That is,
That's not
it
bad.
is one of my favorite ones. And it
Sure.
it pairs well with this Gear for Grunts hat, which are one of the
Yeah.
limited there. So I got to give a shout
Yeah,
out.
I feel yeah, shout out to, like one of our longtime supporters, Gear for Grunts. We in the let me what chat room? I'm in the Facebook chat room, and we got, Rob the producer throwing our sponsors up there, Kermode Outdoors, Nine Lines collection that we support, and that's the Enlisted Nine Fight Company, and
Yep.
the Enlisted Nine Fight Company is who supports us. But you can find them at ninelineapparel.com. We also support a couple of really good nonprofits. Veteran Outdoors is the one that we tend to give a lot of attention to, but it's not the only one. Veterans for Child Rescue, we support them.
Yep.
If you haven't checked out them, go to back episodes and check out.
Our interview with Saul Sawyer.
Yeah, with Craig Salmon. Sorry, I got distracted because my man Chris Traeger is like, I'm in Round Rock. I'm a filmmaker, man. If I'd have known that, I got a media company, my man. You need to
Yeah.
come holler at your boy. He was on the VRS. Let's hook up. Let's do it. Come north a mile and a half, and I'll get you
Oh man, he's
a
a
bed
VRS
log.
guy. We got roots back to there. We
Yeah, we spent a little time on the
yeah,
VRS.
we did.
The we got and we're still pretty tight with its founder. I talked to its founder and originator Daniel Eric just yesterday.
Yeah, I just saw where
Um,
he's been traveling. I saw he was just in the great state of Tennessee, Patriot state of shooting
yeah,
stuff.
he's doing those irreverent warrior silky hikes,
Yeah.
and I like what he's doing. Like I like some of these things. And I'm gonna make a confession. You know how I feel about ice bucket challenge. You know how I feel about push up challenges and all that
Yeah.
stuff. But I gotta tell you, lately, my opinion has been changing.
Hmm.
And all right, now like hear me out. Hear me out. My opinion's been changing because the people that have been doing it recently that I've been noticed are pretty impressive military folks that have been doing it themselves, and they've been opening it up by saying like, "Hey, we understand that this push-ups aren't what makes the difference. However, if I have your attention for long enough to watch me do some stupid push-ups and make fun of like the generally straight line from my shoulders to my ankles, and then my feet are like 6 inches apart, and that I'm breaking the plane, like if you got time to do
Breaking the
that,
plane.
then you got time. You got time to like think about calling a friend or calling a thing, and if it helps one person, it's worth it. And mental health is a real thing, and a lot of families struggle and deal with it. Mine is not immune from it, and so I'm starting to change my opinion on some of that. And so like I appreciate some of the great people out there doing things. Um, had a sobering week this week. Um One of the young men, a young Marine out of Camp Pendleton, that was on board the amphibious vehicle that went down, is in town for a funeral of one of the other guys that was on board that perished from the New Braunfels area. And so we had a group of Marines and some Army guys come over and kind of lock arms and huddle around this young or young kid and named Jared. Jarrett, sorry, great kid. Um, you know, what a thing. You're in the service for a minute, you're training up, something major like this happens, and they're turning around and getting on a Mew in September. And they got to get back on that horse and deal with it. In the meantime, grieve with a pretty catastrophic loss. Their platoon is combat ineffective, and now they're gonna have to like spool some other guys up and bring some guys in,
Bring
and
some backfills in,
just
and they got to continue mission, right? Got Charlie Mike.
yeah, yeah. And so like it was great to like kind of sit down with him and kind of share some experience of what it's like to kind of go through some of that stuff, and try and pass some wisdom on. Some great Marines joined us. Some Army guys joined us. Of course, old TK was down to share some
I
wisdom.
figured he'd
and
be there. Yeah, yeah.
Medal of Honor recipient Dakota Meyer called in. And the funny thing is, he'd have been in person, but he wasn't, because the dude has become a full-time firefighter. And
Really?
he was like called in, yeah. And he went through the academy, did like everything, and now he's like, and he was on shift, and so he was at the firehouse, and they were making him mop the floor, like doing probation. Like he called in.
You can mop with that. You can mop with that blue ribbon around your neck or not. It's up to you. There, plebe or whatever they call them.
I love it. So I loved it, and but it was neat. So love seeing how people can do little things, and I can participate in it to really make a difference. And so my opinion on some of these challenges is changing and improving.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that when you were just saying that. I just want to jump in real quick. I've been getting them too. People have tagged me or whatever, like, "Hey, I'm gonna do push-ups." Like, yeah, I spent my whole freaking life doing push-ups. I'm like, but what you said kind of triggered why you probably haven't been into it, and I'm not really into all that mess, right? The ALS, the ice bucket thing, I never got, because I was always like, so you'd rather dump ice over your head than give money? Because that was kind of what the whole thing was, right? I was like, that seemed kind of a douche move. But this other stuff, it's like, for me, Toby, that's for people that don't do what you just did this week, that you and I don't do all the time, right? We don't need reminded. We don't need to be. It's kind of like the whole thing where I talk about, we've talked about in here that, Memorial Day is not for the families and for the fellow service members of those that have been lost. That every day is Memorial Day for us. We don't need a day to call out, right? Those challenges to me aren't for us that live that all the time, that all we get is a text sometimes, and we know we got to go in another room and make a phone call, right? Or like this, you got made aware this young man's coming back, and you guys huddled around him, and you put your arms around him and prayers around him, and did that. You didn't need to be told to do that or given a reminder to do that. That's kind of my, I don't want to say it's a conflict, but that's kind of my back and forth.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Right. Is reach out. But I don't need push up to challenge to bring awareness. We do that on the show all the time. But that's just me. I'm not saying I won't do it, but I get those too, and I'm very much against the I don't want to say shaming. Some of it is, or guilting that people try to do on, like, hey, it's this, you should donate money, or hey, it's this, I'm doing this and I'm going to tag you in it. It's like, okay, great, awesome. I'm busy working. I don't, but anyways, just it's it's awesome you did it, and it's awesome for people to raise awareness, but I kind of feel for some of us, we don't really need that awareness to be raised. But anyways, I don't know if you agree or disagree or feel any different or see what I'm saying.
Oh, no, I 100% agree. And I'm probably not going to do push-ups because someone asked me to do push-ups, but I will pay attention to the sentiment, and I'll try and do better at participating in the sentiment, because even though we do that stuff a lot, it's still like, it's good to be reminded, like, hey, keep it out there. And it, a lot of times, we have platforms and people like it. So, it's good to do it. Speaking of our platform,
I want to give a big shout out right now, real quick, to Travis Lee Cox, who has turned into the newest supermodel for Commodity Outdoors. I just want to say,
he was looking good. He was looking good.
It's amazing what good camera filters do. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
Love to you, Travis.
brisk, cool air with that special material on the nipples, accentuating it. It was like spectacular. I was really touched by that. The But speaking of platforms and reach, we are at 999 followers on Facebook. I
Still,
know,
we're
I
still
know.
at 99. We're still at 99. We were at that like
999. Like they can't give us the 1K. They can't give us the 1K because we have not received the 1K on our Facebook,
we can't get one
which is
more
hilarious
follower.
because
I mean,
we got like 5,000 unique downloads on iTunes every week. But no, like
so
Facebook, the
everyone that's
haters.
that's watching right now, everyone's in the chat. If you do not follow us, I mean, it's I don't know
Yeah,
what to
I
say.
tell you what, the first person, the newest person to follow us today, uh, to take us to 1,000, Kermode Outdoors will give you a Kermode Outdoors shirt and a Veteran Outdoors hat.
Both
Uh,
two.
sponsored by Kermode Outdoors.
Man,
So yeah, 99 loose balloons. Uh,
if only if you
only
know
But
only
if we
Shard.
if
Yeah,
we
I knew who that was from before I even saw it. I was like,
whoever brings us over 1,000
oh, Rob, our producer is.
followers.
I guess Rob's going to follow us now. He's just our producer.
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah, atta boy, Rob, Rob. The
Hey,
the
honey, go follow him right now. Get you a hat
Yeah,
and a
no, like
t-shirt.
that you get a shirt and a hat. The
Hey,
But anyway, we're 20 minutes in, and we've been getting after just random stuff. Let's talk about some different things that are going on. I want to talk about sports. Um, I also want to talk the conventions,
yep.
and I also want to talk violence. So let's start with the conventions, and then we'll do that for about 20 minutes, and then we'll start diving into the other stuff.
You don't want to go into sports first? We just
No,
had a
no,
late
no.
breaking headline right when the show started.
Oh, what was it?
Well, so the Mets and the Marlins just walked off the field in protest after a 42-second
Yeah,
moment of
we'll,
silence.
we'll get back. We'll get back to that. We'll
Okay,
get back
America's
to that.
pastime, they say. That's what they call it. So,
Yeah,
yeah. All right.
it's America's past in time. That's not going to get shared by me anymore.
No.
So let's let's go to let's start with the
conventions.
DNC.
Yeah, so
Let's start with the
DNC.
DNC.
I watched some of it last week. Wasn't able to watch. I was kind of busy with some family stuff. Had a very important milestone happening, and but I watched a little bit of it and caught some of the follow-ups. Regardless of what my politics are, it could have been. It felt like 4 days of almost just angry funeral. I mean, it was really. I'm not even getting to the production quality and this and that because you can't even compare the two different weeks. But it just was, it was going up and just talking about nothing, kind of like a Seinfeld-ish episode. Did not talk about any. I mean, look, if you're not the incumbent party, the whole reason the other opponent is you're trying to convince America or the constituents, if it's a local election or whatever, the local populace, of why they should vote for you because you're better, because you can do this better or that better, right? You can help with jobs or economy or security or whatever it's going to be, or right. But there was none of that I saw last week put across of how the Democratic Party and or their candidate that they put forward is going to do something different than what's happening today to make things like no one's talked about how they could there was some projection about how they think they would have handled the crisis better and that kind of stuff because right you can sit on the outside and sharpshoot all day if you're not the one up there in the hot seat, but there was nothing like you should vote for us because we have this plan that is X to do better for jobs or better for the economy or better security or whatever. And it was just a lot of you should go for us because we're not that guy. There's a lot. It seemed like it was just bad orange man, not convince me why you have a better plan for, because people come and go. Like, what are you going to do in the next 4 years that's going to improve on something that wasn't done right for the last 3.5 years? That's kind of was my take on it. I'll kind of stop there and get your
Well,
perspective.
so I will share in some of that sentiment. Um, I absolutely share in the sentiment that nothing was presented. Um, I was hopeful that something would be presented. I was hopeful that there would the opportunity would be taken to kind of share some of these things. And the reason I was hopeful and optimistic that some of these plans and commentary would be shared is because we haven't had the opportunity for campaigning. Um, we, we've had a absent absentee, for lack of a better term, campaign, and so I was really hoping that at this convention would come the launch or the here we go, day one. We're gonna talk about this, and we're gonna launch into that. Um, and Rob, unpaid producer, find out who the most recent Facebook page follower was. Someone just did it, so we hit 1,000. So
Yes. Thank
whoever
you.
that is, Rob will tell us, and we'll announce the winner here as soon as he sends that name up. But there wasn't. There was no delivery of that, and you're absolutely right that it was. You just need to vote for us. But I will also say that, and I had this discussion with someone that is on. I would say that we don't share all the same political beliefs, but someone I care about and I respect deeply, and that's that there was zero fact checking, there was zero accountability by the media, there was zero like, hey, wait a second, you that's not necessarily true. There was, like you said, Orange Man bad. It, Julia Louise Dreyfus coming out and doing like a big roast, like the production value. Since you brought it up, I mean, like seriously, I felt like we were back, in someone's cable news basement, Wayne's World style.
I think our production value is better, dude. I think they were.
Not when I'm in charge of it. Not when I'm in
I wasn't going there, brother. You
but
know I got much love. I wasn't gonna do that to you.
no, but no, I was really kind of I was disappointed that here you have this great moment. You have the benefit of the majority of media giving you all the attention and a big slurp fest. So take it. I mean, you you can do better.
Right.
You can the and one of the things like I keep hearing, and like uh, Michelle Obama's thing bothered me mainly because I pay attention to immigration for some unknown reason. It's kind of like a hobby of mine,
Can't figure
to
why.
pay attention to like what's going on with immigration. I know like a lot of people have other things that they occupy their time with. That's something that's like near and dear to my heart, and I pay attention to it. And the like she blamed she blamed the current president for what her husband started, her husband initiated, and her husband allocated funds, like took funds from other programs, put it into that program to create that. And she sat there and bold faced lied. Um, Governor Como from New York stood there taking credit for a job well done in dealing with the COVID and saying that we need to listen to the Democrats' COVID plan because the president did it wrong. But here's the thing is I haven't heard a Democratic plan, and I know that what he did cost thousands of people's lives.
Now being
Like
investigated because.
like not I'm not saying that in an exaggeratory way, and I'm not embellishing, and I'm not trying to like come up with some schoolyard like make it sound bad. No, like his decision to send people back into nursing homes that were known and infected killed people,
Mm-hmm.
and not just one or two. We're talking literally thousands of people, and like to sit there and take credit for it and brag about how well you did it. Like, come on, the media should have like come in. Now the other day, I'll be honest, I was pretty proud. PBS, while interviewing Nancy Pelosi in reference to the botched negotiations, for the next relief and rebuilding plan, called her out and was like, you're saying he didn't do this, or you don't like the plan that he did, but at least he did something. And like, people are, I like it when there's a little bit of honesty there, but I feel like there wasn't a lot of honesty,
Right.
and I was disappointed because, like, I've done this exercise, and here's a simple exercise, and I want, don't do it right now, but just keep a note of this. So you have very limited intelligence. You know that you have a strong threat, and you have a pretty good idea that it's a threat. We'll just say chemical. That there's going to be a chemical attack. There's going to be a chemical attack within the contiguous United States. So the lower 48, for those of you that don't know that there's a state to the north. So in the lower 48, you know that there's going to be a chemical attack. You know that the people responsible that developed the weapon are located in a certain area, certain region, and that weapon is going to start in that region. It's going to end somewhere in the contiguous United States, or the continental United States, for those of you that are military inclined, the CONUS. And like, you don't know how to treat it. You don't know how you're going to deal with it. You don't know the effects. You just know that you're going to take a catastrophic chemical hit.
Right.
What do you do? Like, that's all the intelligence you have. Like, that's all you got. What do you do? What is your plan? Like, it's coming from a certain area. So I guess stopping any kind of transportation
From that area.
from that, so any kind of conveyance from that area. That makes sense. Um, then you find out that there's other avenues that has been circumvented. You shut down what the circumvention was. Outside of that, you just kind of got to figure it out as you go, as you're being exposed to it, as you got to test it, as this thing happens and evolves in real time. I I've sat there. I'm not any of these scientists. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a logical, common sense guy. You have a problem. You have limited intelligence. What do you do to mitigate and solve it?
Right.
And ignoring it isn't one.
No.
Like, and there's so much dishonesty about, like, all of that. Well, hey, you should come on down to Chinatown. It's safe.
Yeah.
Like, you miss the point.
And amazingly today, Kamala Harris, did her little they call it a pre-buttal. She did a speech in D.C. because, Joe can't leave, I guess, his basement or something. And, she talked about, I watched a little bit, she talked about how the president failed. He failed at the beginning. He was a coward. He did nothing. He froze. Yeah, he froze. He froze travel from China and was called racist and called, xenophobic and everything else. And that's what he froze was. But she tried to accuse him of making mistakes multiple times, and so this is, I talked about earlier how there was nothing last week saying here's what we would do better. So the first thing I heard, actually, correction, was not last week, it was today, when she made the claim, and again, kind of on the outside because there's no way to substantiate it, that if the Democrat, if would be in charge, that there'd be a lot less people dead. And that just doesn't seem to match up when you see what Cuomo's done and what other things have happened in New Jersey and Pennsylvania and a few other places where,
All right.
It just doesn't match.
Right. So, like, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to disagree with you, because you just made a statement. You just said that a political party is going to be the deciding factor on action. Like, well, yeah, there might be a way that you can correlate a political party performing or executing things in a certain way, some positive, some negative, but like it really boils down to leadership.
Right.
And leadership isn't a partisan thing. Leadership is a personal characteristic. It's a trait. And you have to like you got to take the information that you have in front of you. Like Como didn't make those decisions because he's a Democrat. Como made those decisions because he's a fucking idiot.
He's not a leader.
He didn't think it through,
Yeah.
right? Maybe he did think it through, and he made it off of bad intelligence. He didn't surround himself. He didn't build himself with a good team. Like part of this, is partisan, but part of it's also like we as individual human beings have to take accountability for our actions, and we have to take accountability for where we stand in life. And like to sit there and just be like, I'm going to blame this party, I'm going to blame this individual for my problems, it just shows like what a weak person you are. Like we got to make sure that like as an individual we're making a decision. Now I tend, everyone's going to like give me a hard time because they're like, oh, Toby, you're definitely a Republican. No, I don't know if I am. I can tell you what I am. I'm the right person for the job. As an employer, as a owner of a small business, I don't hire people based on the color of their hair. I don't base it on the color of their skin. I don't base it on their gender. I base it on their resume, and I base it on their like my understanding. Do they have the ability to do the job, and are they the best candidate for the job? Are they going to best suit my business? And can I count on them? Like the to sit there and like blame a party, and now I started this little tirade by like pushing back on you because of Democrats, but like that seems to be that party's answer for everything is to blame another party. It's like,
Right.
yo, you didn't have, and I'm not a big conspiracy guy, everyone knows that. There's not like a back room somewhere where they're like, you know what, let's do this and we're gonna blame these guys. I know like the Republican senators like eat lunch together as often as they can. When they're in session, I believe it's daily. I know the Democratic senators, have a very similar practice. And
Actually, I've been
in
down
these
in their
meetings,
I've been down in their dining room. I've eaten down there with them. They kind of all do sit with each other. They're
yeah,
not they don't totally like. It's not like in high school where the dope smoker sat over here and the jock sat over there and the cheerleader. I mean, they actually do kind of mix up and sit
yeah.
and stuff. Yeah.
But like I know that they make a concerted effort to like spend as much time together as they can, to discuss policy, and that's when the internal lobbying and stuff like
Right.
that happens. But like no one's sitting there going like, let's do this. Like
Right.
part of it is like, man, you just suck. And right now, like what I see is we got some leaders out there that aren't leading, that they kind of
Right.
suck. Coincidentally, a lot of them are attached to the same party. Now, the Republican Party is not like free from fucking shenanigans, and they're not free from bad leadership.
No.
But one thing is for sure, the people that are standing on the podiums and the people that are behind the microphones the most, talking the most trash about a party, seem to be the ones with the least amount of impact on solving the problems that they're crying about.
Yeah. Let
And
me get back to
like
that.
that's
I
how
want
I
to
felt about that's how I felt about both of the conventions.
Right. So on the DNC convention, did you have any other? I want to move to the RNC one. Did you have any other reflections or anything different than what that you picked up on or that?
It was really disappointing. That's what I have, and because I was hopeful, I was optimistic, but if I wanted to watch a roast with bad comedy and like horrible comedic value and bad production value, I'd have just tuned into someone's, like, in fact, the Donald Trump's actual roast was on Comedy Central was better than the DNC convention.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it
So
was. Yeah, Lisa Lampanelli and Snoop Dogg roasting. I mean, what gets better than that? But the but on the RNC one, what have been your? I don't know how much you've watched of it this week. It just started here a few minutes
I,
ago. What have your thoughts on that one?
so one, I didn't know that Guilfoyle was dating Trump Jr.
Oh, you didn't know that?
So I learned that.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
so I learned that. Yeah.
You're not in the know.
Um,
You're not in the DC gossip circle, dude.
no, like no. So
I
like
think Jimbo
again,
told me that.
I try to pay attention to like substance things versus Kardashian like things, and so that explains because I was like, wow, she's an interesting choice for firing the crowd up. And that's what she tried to do. I don't know how successful it was, but
I
it
felt
was
like she
like
was yelling at me. She was screaming
yeah,
at
I
me.
was like, part of me was like, not the opening number that I'd have liked. But I always enjoy Nikki Haley.
Yep.
I think that one, she's a class act. I think that she's pushed back on her beliefs. I believe that she's got some rigid convictions, and I thought she did. I didn't live in her state when she was governor, but I haven't heard many people talk trash about her time as governor, uh, and her system of governance seemed to have been successful. When she represented our nation to the greater world in terms of the UN, I was excited and I was proud to know that that was the person that was speaking on the behalf of everyone that lived within the borders of the United States, as well as those that consider themselves American.
Right.
And so I enjoyed that she was speaking. I was a little bit confused at why some people were selected as speakers. I got to be honest with you, that couple from
Missouri.
St. Louis or whatever,
Yeah.
um, the McCloskeys or whatever their name is. Um, I, I I think that was a horrible choice. I understand their plight. I have zero grievance with what they did, and I think that they're definitely being wronged. And I definitely think that they're getting their day in court, as they'll make sure, since they're both lawyers that specialize in that, and they're going to be just fine. I I don't
I
see
think Herschel
how
Walker
they.
was. I think Herschel Walker was great. That dude.
Yeah, yeah. No,
And
I liked Herschel Walker. I got to tell you, next to Nikki, and I don't need Haley. I don't know if I can like decide who I like better, but man, I tell you, Senator Scott might
yeah.
be like one of the greatest human beings on this planet. If you don't listen to Ted Cruz's podcast, like you can get some decent insight in there. He was a guest on that, and you really kind of get to see and hear a little bit more about him than you get in his speeches and stuff. But what what a guy! What a great choice! I love the sentiment that within a generation from poverty to the United States Senate in a generation. I mean, like I
Yeah.
love that sentiment. I love
Yeah.
again Nikki
Cotton Fields to
Haley.
Congress was a
Yeah,
powerful soundbite,
yeah,
right?
yeah. No, like, but but that just demonstrates again personal agency. It demonstrates that you can be part of the American dream,
Right.
and I think that's what the Republican Party stands for. And too often people think the Republican Party stands for greed. It stands for you know small interest group. It stands for this. But honestly, like what we're seeing is the Republican Party is really becoming this party of the American dream.
And
And
you see that trend over the last few nights. You see tonight. I think you're going to see it
yeah,
more with Ben Carson, but you see that when they're bringing up the lobster man, and they're bringing up the dairy farmers, and they're bringing up the truckers, and
yeah,
they're bringing. I mean, where the DNC marched out a whole bunch of Hollywood A-listers, right? Of which we know most of America doesn't relate to, nor do they care about their opinion. The Republican National Committee has brought out not only Congress people and people like that who have come up from meager, means and stuff. Even Nikki Haley talking about what it was like to, have people make fun of her as a kid because of her heritage, right? But also everyday folks coming up there, getting a spot in the limelight, talking about even Caleb Caney, her speech last night about her. I never knew about her breast cancer mastectomy. Obviously, it's not something she's talked about. She looks way too young to have had a double mastectomy, but to come up there and just lay it out there and say, or the lady the other night, I don't remember her name, that the night before, that talked about, she, because of President Trump, putting in executive action to allow for trials of drugs and all that kind of stuff. She's only alive because she had such rabid cancer, also a very young looking lady, that she had, that they not opened it up for her to get trial medications and experimental treatments. She would not be alive. I mean, just, it's definitely a theme of the people, right?
Yeah.
Kind of party.
And I love that. And what makes America great, the reason why I came here is because like you can follow your dreams here. And when things go wrong, this is a country of redemption. This is a country of second chances. And you can come here. Like that's why we say bring us your week. And so like I love that theme is coming through. I will say one thing I did not like about the DNC, and I disliked it even more with the RNC. And that's, while both gave good rousing speeches, I think it's personal. Like, I just think it's in bad taste if you go and you are a member of another party and you go to their convention and you like, I didn't think Kasich, going after Trump was in good taste. You come across as a sore loser. You lost a presidential bid to him. And,
it does come across
over there, like selling out your party. And, while I did enjoy, the congressman, the Democratic congressman from Georgia speaking,
Vernon Jones, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wish that it was somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like, don't do that. Don't do that. Like, I appreciate, because to me, that's political stunts. That's not like talking to the people. That's not sharing things. That's just a political stunt.
Or cut over, right? Maybe. I mean, like the guy from New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
He left the Democratic, said, I'm Republican, right? He just totally up and left.
No,
and,
like, do that.
Right.
Do that. Do that. I just, but I don't think that stunt was as bad as Kasich.
Right. I didn't watch his speech,
part,
but I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure it wasn't kind.
Yeah, but for the most part, like you got some wonderful stories, demonstrating character. Again, some of these guys, Herschel Walker, when you look at it, you're like, well, why did they choose those people? Well, because a man's being accused of something over and over and over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah, Brewster, Herschel Walker, people. The guy from that was on last night, that was part of the the civil rights leader that was there at the Woolworth. I mean, people that know the president personally, right? These are it's. I'll just kind of highlight. I want to highlight one thing. I was complaining about this last night at my house. He brings out the Republican Party showed all its diversity, women, African Americans, Chinese dissidents, Cubans, all stuff. And then what do you hear? It doesn't matter what he does. I can't do it right. But what do you hear? They're breaking it. They even called them tokens, right? They called them, I can't believe there was vitriol on the internet calling them tokens. Had they not, it would be, look at all these white. I mean, let's say they didn't bring out hardly any minorities or anything. Let's say they bring out all whites and it's even all males or whatever. Then it would be, look, here they go. They're not representative of America. They don't represent the unique diversity and fabric of America. So when they do, then it's like, oh, those are just tokens. You just can't. People are so enraged and so blind to common sense, like Bette Midler, that they just say and do the stupidest things. I
Oh
know
my
I had I
goodness.
know and I slipped that in there. Say and do the stupidest things without just a moment of common sense. I mean, just think about what you're saying. Like, look, awesome. They didn't just walk out. I mean, just black person after black person. Like, it's a mixture. It's representative of
Uh,
America, right?
it,
And even
and that's the thing.
non-Americans, a Chinese dissident who's not a citizen, right? But people from all over. Anyways, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So part of me felt like there was this attempt at diversity with the DNC, and some of it I just felt like was tongue in cheek. I mean, having Pocahontas, like hosting the Native American, call like that. Come on, like that's just, again, that's political stunt, that's shenanigans, that's pandering, and that's superficial diversity. That's not real diversity. That's tokenism. If you want anything, like, that's straight up tokenism. But the people that were claiming racism were too blind to see that one group wasn't even discussing that in any way because it isn't part of it. Like, you're talking about, like, guys that have been friends for decades. You're talking about people blessing each other's children. You're talking about feeding people when they're hungry out of your own pocket. Yeah, like, you might not like some of his policies, but you can't, like, you want to talk about racism? I mean, like, first act, is protecting historically black colleges.
Right.
His very first act.
Like
Yeah.
day one.
I know another guy that had 8 years that could have done something. Nada. How about turning Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. King Jr.'s home into a national, like, protected area? There was a guy that had 8 years that had an opportunity to do that. Nada. Like, when you look at who, like, stands beside him on these things, like, those people aren't standing beside him because it's a political moment for him. They're standing beside him because, like, he's on their side.
Right.
He's a legitimate ally. And, and there's some things, and it was brought to my attention that he said some things, some slurs, in terms of homosexuals, back in the day. And, dude, I got to tell you, like, if you said it, you got to own it, and you can't walk that back. But I'll also say, like, man, there's a lot of people that had the opportunity to put an openly gay person in the cabinet and didn't.
Until he did. And who was on stage and
Right.
talking
So,
about
like,
him, right?
but what I got was out of the RNC was, and I know we got to get moving on. That what I got out of the RNC is it wasn't superficial. It was like, hey, this is America. There was some things that were cringeworthy, like some of the rah stuff, the McCloskey's. But for the most part, I was like, all right, well, here's a cross section of America. I didn't take it as, like, tokenism. I just took it as Americanism,
Yeah.
patriotism. I took it as people that wanted to say good things about their current leader, wanted to say good things about their country, and wanted to say good things about their thing. The one thing that I will say was a bit of a stunt that I kind of appreciated, and I got to tell you, the irony of the old Covington kid being able to go on CNN and, basically, like, rub their nose in the fact that
Put the hat on.
they made him they made him exceptionally rich, and he got the opportunity to clear the air. I thought that was kind of cool, and I enjoyed the irony of it. But what's really important is we don't have parties in one city doing one thing and another party in another city doing another. What we need to have is we need to have these two parties side by side working together to make America better and to, like, get us through this time that we're at, because we're traversing times.
Right.
We have an election coming up, and we need to know who the best candidate is, and those candidates need to face each other.
That's
where
demonstrate. These political parties have lost. If you can look back in the years and even in as in the 80s and before, right? Especially the 80s and the Ronald Reagan time when people consider him such a hardline conservative. He still worked across the aisle. They worked together. That's where these politicians and whoever their puppet masters or whatever it is behind them forget is that, yeah, okay, you have a base core set of fundamentals that you believe in, and that's pretty much why you've aligned with that party, right? Hopefully that's why you remember that party, not just to get voted in like some people may do, but you believe in that, and you believe in their characteristics and their model. But when you get up there, you're working for the people, not just your constituents. For all, I mean, you are working for your constituents,
You're
but
voting
all
for the people
people.
that voted against you too.
Right. You're representing them too. And that means compromise, and you have to give and take, but at the end of the day, when you're a collective body voting on, you're doing what's best for the American people, right? So that's where they just lost it. And I've seen that, honestly, it has been more prevalent from the Bush years, second Bush, GW forward. It has gotten so divisive since then that it's like, I'm not even thinking about I won't even think about it, right? No, you're in that party. There's so much hate and vitriol that we're not even going to think about because you represent that. Prior to GW's days, Clinton days, there were Republicans that went back and forth, including there were Democrats that voted for the other side, and so on and so forth. It's only been since then this is hatred, and it kind of sadly aligns with the technology and the freedom of information and the hatred that spews online and the people's instant gratification needs and the inability and media's inability to be an unbiased mouthpiece of news and facts. All of that has spun people up where they just take that and take you down a path, and that's what it is. And people won't consider the other side. I mean, I know people that were consider themselves very independent, but have gotten so pissed off by one side or the other, even though they're still registered and independent, they are all one side because they won't even listen because they're so mad at the other side. And man, I don't know. I just keep telling people term limits. We just need term limits. That'll solve a lot. But I want to move on to some of the violence. We got a little bit of time left. We could have probably done a show on this whole hour on a 17-year-old kid and the pros and cons and the whys and the why nots. But I mean, besides even that, what's happened in Kenosha, Wisconsin, but Minneapolis piped back up last night. Riots after the rumors spread that the cops killed the black man in Minneapolis. When it come to find out, they were closing in to arrest him, and he killed himself. Right, but it was well after all the stuff had happened, and Minneapolis pretty much burned again last night. Portland in 91, 92 days now of it. Seattle, I don't know what's going on with that one. Chicago is just nonstop violence anyways, but they had to lift the bridges and stop all the commuter service, train service to try to stop that. And now we have Kenosha, Wisconsin. I didn't even know it was a city, to be quite honest, till 3 days ago. Never had been traveled through there, had never even heard that name before. Is now.
Well, I've heard of Kenosha, Wisconsin, because that's where that '70s show takes place.
No, that's Sheboygan. That's Sheboygan. Which I've been to Sheboygan. I've been to Sheboygan. Yes.
Somewhere like Kenosha, Wisconsin is like it like.
Sheboygan is the home of Johnsonville sausage. So I know it.
All right, I want to say. I want to say it's that '70s show. I'm gonna stick with it because
right.
I don't watch a ton.
Rob's fact checking right now.
Someone's gonna find out, but I believe like Kenosha, Wisconsin, or there's something.
There's some cheese curds there. I know that. There's some cheese curds there. There's no doubt.
Or maybe Llewellyn Sweet Lou is saying it's Wayne's World, but I thought that was Aurora, Illinois. But anyway, what I want to say is we are, as a country, constantly on the top of this wave, and like we're trying to drop in and catch a good ride, and to catch a good ride we need a reason. You need a board, and everyone's looking for that good board. Everyone's looking for that rocket to ride, and everyone's quick. And George Floyd was a legitimate rocket to ride. He was a good longboard. He was a good, and honestly, the only really good example that I can think of a guy being wronged and killed that way. Now, there's been a couple of different ones. Uh, Aubrey, or I'm going to say his name wrong, so I apologize. Um, that guy that got hunted down by, vigilante basically in that neighborhood and shot.
Right. The
There've
one
been
down in
some, there've been
Atlanta.
some other, there've been some other situations that were definitely suspect, but like the guy in Atlanta, um, not the dude jogging through the neighborhood, but like the dude that passed out in the Wendy's drive-through.
Right.
Like, bro, you were like drunk. You were like not the best human being, and you had a lot of opportunity to like just deal with what you had coming to you, but instead, no, you like took every opportunity to not take accountability. Then you attacked and you got killed. Um, but like all that stuff in Atlanta. Hey, that dude, he's not the rocket to ride. He's not the guy you celebritize. This guy, Jacob, is it Blake? Jake
Yeah.
Blake, whatever this dude's name in Kenosha. Like, hey man, you guys are picking the wrong board to hop on this wave with. You picked a guy that had a warrant for his arrest, resisting with the same department that's involved in an active domestic disturbance. Um, they tased him. He didn't respond to the taser because it doesn't always work. Less than lethal doesn't always work. Just saying. And the guy went and did did an action that it doesn't matter if he had a weapon or not. You're not compliant, you're not working, you're at gunpoint, and you continue to do something. I don't care who you are. You're not going to convince me any other way that if you have someone at gunpoint and they still don't comply and they start doing things that they know that they're not supposed to do, like walking around a vehicle and then getting into the vehicle to get for something, it doesn't matter. Like, even if he didn't have a weapon and his plan was to get in the vehicle and leave, the dude just beat somebody in an active domestic thing. Like, you gotta stop the dude. You can't
Right.
like.
Now
Where's the
were seven shots needed? Was the cop on adrenaline overload? Who know? I mean, that to me, from outside perspective, that seems a tad excessive. But it doesn't
right?
mean a shot wasn't warranted. Especially he was, I guess, reaching for a knife or whatever they thought he had. We don't know all the details. Maybe he said, "I'm going to
Yeah,
get my knife." Maybe who knows, whatever.
yeah.
But it wasn't. He
But here's the
wasn't
thing.
innocent.
Let's just look at what the officers knew at the time. They knew at the time the guy's name. They knew that he had an open and active warrant. They were at a live domestic scene. They'd used less than lethal, and he
Which
was non-compliant. Like, you don't have a lot of options.
right.
So you want to count rounds? Count rounds. I mean, like, really, we're talking semantics. Like, it,
Their other
the
talking
part,
point is, well, he shot him in the back. Well, yeah, that's because he was facing forward, grabbing potentially a weapon,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Like, we're talking semantics, and we're talking. This is a justifiable shooting all day long. I can't see in any court of law how it's prosecutable,
Right.
based on and that's without the DOJ saying that yes, there were in fact weapons in the vehicle and a weapon on the floorboard. Like, that's without that. I mean, like, we're talking about semantics.
So let's talk about this 17-year-old.
What I'm
Oh,
saying is they picked the wrong guy to celebritize. They
right.
picked the wrong board to ride on that wave, and they got on the wrong rocket. And what's happening is now you got all these people that are like, oh, here we go, another one. Let's burn this thing down. And all we did was incite both sides. And the pendulum swings, right? And as
Right.
far as it swings one direction, it's going to swing the other. You got a group of young, impressionable people that feel like there's like this huge injustice that's being perpetrated against them and that it just happened. And now there's this video. And so they're like, here we go. Let's burn. Because like the answers now, you're not going to get attention unless you do this. So you have to do this if you want to get any kind of validity or credit or respect. So now you got to do this. And then as the pendulum swings across, you got the same age group demographic, equally as impressionable, going like, oh, well, we should stop them.
We're gonna take
right?
it into our own hands, right? We're
Yeah.
gonna you know
We're and they're getting that because the stage has been set. We've seen 90 plus days in Portland. We've seen in Chicago.
people are
And
tired.
let's remember, like,
People are tired of
where
being
these
quiet.
guys came from, where these guys came from in Illinois is not that far away. So, like, we have all these factors. They're like, well, the cops aren't going to do anything. So we better do something. And this is our moment to make a stand. Both sides think that this is their moment to make a stand. And they both think that they're equally just. And they both are celebritizing the wrong people. And so now you got a 17-year-old kid from another state with an AR, probably without the permission slip from his dad, because like last time I checked, Illinois, like I bet Birdie and Maddie would have something to say about like how strict their laws are, except that he's got a saw. The but like they got some strict laws there. They got some tough things. But this kid's 17 years old. He's with a group of people, and he goes somewhere he probably shouldn't go. Then he gets separated from them. But meanwhile, like the dude's got a magazine, a basic aim point, and a pretty baseline model. Right, so he's
At
not
least he
like
didn't have
all
a high
decked
point.
out.
At least he didn't have a high point like the one guy did. I mean,
Yeah, he's not sitting there like all vested out. He's not
no,
boogalooing or whatever like that.
yeah,
Those ass clowns
wasn't
are.
even in a Hawaiian
He's
shirt. Nothing.
no wine shirt, no like igloo, none of that. So he's like gets separated, and now here we go. The pack, they're like sharks, right? So now we got like this fish in the water. It's panicked. It's swimming. It's swimming erratically, and they're like, "Oh, we should do that fish. I know we should do that fish. I'm gonna throw a Molotov cocktail at it because that makes sense." And so like somebody lights a Molotov cocktail on fire and throws it at the dude
While chasing him,
while chasing him. Fortunately, it doesn't break on him, because it sounds like that dude had a weak arm and like didn't think about like what he was doing. Like a Molotov cocktail is not something you break on something. It's something you it's an area weapon. It's not a point weapon. Let
yep.
me like throw some infantry in it for us. But then it doesn't break, so he continues to attack. So what do you think the kid's thinking? Oh, they just tried to light me on fire. They probably want to kill me. Oh, they're still coming. Yeah, so he temples the dude. Then he checks on him and he calls for help.
Yep.
Immediate show of remorse. Circles back, looks at him, and then continues to flee. Why does he flee? Not because he's proud, because he's still being chased by a mob of people. Then he gets knocked down by a grown adult, and it's all in the video. That dude's like a big dude, takes him to the ground. Another buddy comes up with the new choice of weapon, the old skateboard.
Not even a longboard. Not even a longboard, just a regular skateboard. But either way,
Just a regular skateboard.
smacked him in the
trucks,
face.
you know that. So the kid's like got a decent chin. I mean, Dana White should probably like get him on the Contender Series.
Who's talking
then,
right now in the RNC, by the way. Dana White is on it right now.
That's awesome. And then from there, like the kid from the ground has the presence of mind to identify that he's about to be shot by another guy carrying a pistol, engages threat by threat, center mass.
Both targets. Right? Skateboard guy and pistol guy. And wing shots the pistol guy. Takes removes the threat, the arm holding the pistol.
Yeah. I think that was luck, but hey, whatever. Like,
and then turns and goes towards the police.
You're hearing people yell, "Get him!" You're hearing people yell, "Get his gun!" You're hearing people like, threatening him. You're seeing a mob, and he's all alone. He's a young kid. So like, I am not condoning what he did. I think there's a myriad of laws he broke. I think everything from the decision that he made to take that weapon that clearly isn't his because he's 17, to get in a vehicle and to go anywhere. It doesn't matter if he crossed state lines. If he crossed the street with it, like he made a bad decision, and now he's going to be haunted by that bad decision the rest of his life. But what I will say is, one group of people thought that they had exclusivity on violence, and now they know that they do not.
Did you see the video that was done before the incident happened where the kid was giving water to rioters, washing out their faces that were getting hit with pepper spray? He gets interviewed. I saw it today. And he's washing out his face, and he's taken and giving medical aid to some of the rioters because of the pepper spray they got hit. That happened just moments before all that happened, while he was at the dealership. Yeah. Right? So he was at the dealership, and then he left the dealership, and the police wouldn't let him back there. That's what he was there to protect. So he was out there rendering aid, doing things along that kind of line before this ever happened. But it's going to be he was overcharged. Murder one's not going to stick, and he's not going to get.
No, it's not going to stick. But here's the thing: is justice is going to be served to him. And like I know there's people out there with GoFundMe's and all that stuff. Like, and he's getting people volunteering to be his legal aid and all that stuff. Awesome, cool. But like, hey, he's going to pay for what he did, and he's going to spend the rest of his life on that video that I heard where he's like, help me, I just killed somebody. He immediately understood the brevity of his situation.
Right.
This wasn't, hey, we're like, me and my senior friends are out for a field trip.
He didn't think it was Call of Duty. He didn't think it was, he knew exactly what he was doing.
No, he knew exactly what was happening. He's going to be haunted by all those decisions the rest of his life. But what I will say is, like, everyone's like, the victims of the shooting. It's like, well, let's not call them victims. All right. So like, let's just call them combatants, because he was a combatant and they were combatants. They tried to light the dude on fire. Let's talk about that dude. Was that guy a convicted felon?
Pedophile.
So like,
skateboard guy, convicted felon, or convicted multiple crimes. Rap sheet a mile long.
Yeah. The other dude, felon. Shouldn't have been having a pistol in his hand. And that just also demonstrates, like, we got guys walking around with, I'm a medic, I'm a street medic, I'm all like, I can't wait for Doc Simpson to like start, going off on this. But like, you can't have it both ways. And like I said, now I don't condone anything that this kid did at all. That's not how adults solve their problems. Just like adults don't solve their problems by looting.
Right.
Like, we have civil discourse and we figure it out. The statement that was made at, the one convention that this is a racist country, that's not true. This country is not racist. If anyone that says this is a racist country has never left this country.
Yeah, that's true.
Just saying.
Yep.
Like, go to Mexico.
Go to anywhere, any country in Europe. Go to Australia.
I'm just saying, like, you don't even have to like get on an airplane. I'm just saying, like, go immediately next door. You want to see systemic racism? Look no further than Canada. Like, they're called First Nations. Like, you want to see racism? Ask a Mexican how they feel about a Guatemalan coming through Mexico to get to the U.S. It's not true. And adults solve their problems with dialogue. They don't solve them by swinging skateboards and launching Molotov cocktails. And they don't solve them by showing up with ARs to like poke the bear. Ask the widow of the wheelchaired widow of the young man thought here in Austin that he had something going by like taking an AK to a protest. Yeah, you take the dirt nap challenge, you might get got. Like, I'm not saying that to be sarcastic. I'm not saying it to be funny. I'm just saying, like, hey, you take the dirt nap challenge, you might get got. I got nothing. Like, I think hopefully the best thing that we can hope for is the attention that this is going to bring is that we're going to get some law and order.
Yeah, that the
You know,
American that if the localities, if the local administrations or whatever keep holding the police back or keep defunding and doing all that stuff, the American people, the quiet majority, I refer to them as, are. This is just the first, right? We've been talking about, being. I think when we had Dave Bellevue on a couple weeks ago, a while back, he even talked about he thinks we were only 1 or 2 clicks away from a full, this country having a revolution. I think if things don't change, this is going to be the first step of people are going to realize, yeah, why is a 17-year-old kid standing up? We're all going to stand up. And I think we're going to be in a
right.
bad spot if the police aren't allowed to be police.
But look who's stoking that fire. Look who's stoking that fire. I'm not saying they're doing it as an agenda, but I'm telling you, there's a big coincidence about who's stoking that fire.
Mm-hmm.
And it is hard to ignore that the leadership in the towns that are doing the worst have subscribed to a certain policies. The people that are like restraining the police, this whole, like, I was listening to the Secretary of Homeland Security, Wolf, and they're offering their help to not only the mayor of Portland, but also to the governor of Oregon, and being like, hey, if you guys need help, but they're like, no. And there's this misconception that if they attack the federal building, local police can't pursue, investigate, and then lead it for prosecution. Like, hey, what happened to, like, don't break the law?
Yeah.
Like, there's no, like, get out of jail free card. You're like, oh, well, I'm only attacking the president of the United States or the federal government, so, like, I'm not really breaking a local law. Like, no, you're breaking the law, and we're a country of laws. But I want to hop over to sports because I know we only got a few minutes left.
Yeah.
So I'm happy because both my teams are still alive. I'm not looking too good in my series right now, but Vegas is a formidable opponent for Vancouver, and the Avalanche. Well, I don't even know how, like, they're still in it, but Dallas is dealing with them now. You know what I love about hockey? Hockey players play sports.
That's what they're there for.
They understand that they're getting paid a wage. Now, they did their little ceremonious, like, hey, we skate for everyone. We skate for this. We skate for that. And you can see it on the screen. There was a very impassioned speech given by Dumba, from Minnesota. And, I got to tell you, a Canadian athlete kneeling for the American national anthem is meaningless. It's not your anthem. He stood up for the Canadian national anthem, but he kneeled for the American. Like, the absolute hollow statement. And I think once people realize, like, oh, well, that's a pretty hollow statement, the give a fuck meter went way down, and we got back to what's really important, playing hockey. And then last night, here I am trying to enjoy a pretty spiting game, and the headlines keep coming out, NBA teams refusing to play. Now, I know that you're a member of at least one beer league in your life. I'm a member of at least one beer league in my life. Your kids both played sports. Your son even refereed. One of your boys refereed, but you coach. What happens if you have a sanctioned game and y'all don't suit up enough guys?
It's called forfeit.
Oh, and that gets counted as a...
It's counted as a loss.
Yeah. So if you were in the playoffs, purely hypothetically, and you're engaged in like a series, and y'all decide that, like, you don't want to play, how would you take that?
Well, I mean, if I wasn't one of the ones that didn't want to play, that wanted to play, I'd be pretty pissed because I'm like, it's our chance. But I guess when the other team also does the same thing, two negatives cancel themselves out, right? How do you chalk that up?
Well, I chalk it up as they forfeited, and I chalk it up
there's no
as
winner.
I chalk it up as
Loss for both.
Well, I chalk it up for the first team as a loss, right? Because they're the ones that didn't answer the bell. Ask
I
Yoel
think I
Romero.
think both did it, right? The Bucks and
Right, but the Bucks said it first,
uh,
right? They're like, "Well, we're not going to come out." Now all of a sudden it's like, you know, they kind of play a weird card, right? So like they say they're not coming out, and if the other team comes out, well, now they're racist, right? So they kind of painted themselves in the stupid corner, and it's like, why are we playing political chess with
on
sport?
on the court or the field or the ice or whatever it is. Yeah.
How about just play the game?
Well, then
Like,
the NBA supports it because then they cancel all the games last night,
right?
right?
And now they're like, and so
And now they're back.
I listened to Anson Carter on NBC Sports as he's being, Liam McHugh's asking him like, well, how do you feel about them canceling all these games? And he's like, well, I appreciate the sentiment, but if I was in the locker room, I'd have to respect the guys that wanted to play. It's like, hey, you're not getting paid to not play,
Right.
like, and so like you decide like you're not going to play. That's not a healthy scratch. Like if you don't suit up enough guys, that's a forfeit. And last time I checked, all this is done on performance based contracts. You forfeit, you shouldn't get paid.
Right.
Like
There's
you
no
want
ad dollars coming in. There's no. Well, there's definitely no ticket sales happening right now.
yeah you want to protest? Cool, man. Protest. You feel like you're too emotionally, and we're seeing it with hockey. We got guys that have been declared unfit to play. We got guys that have gone home from the bubble because like they just can't handle the bubble. But if you make the decision not to play, hey, like you're making that decision. If a
Right.
bunch of guys in the locker room like band together, like, hey, this isn't a contract negotiation. This isn't, we talk to our union rep. Like, you don't play, you don't get paid.
Yep.
Your team takes a loss, and like, and this whole like, well, we're painting everyone in a corner that if you disagree with us, you're racist. It's like, hey, cool, man. Guess what you can count on from Toby Nunn from now on? I will never watch basketball ever again.
And I think baseball's right on that list now.
Well, I never
watched
like,
baseball
I like
anyways.
going to baseball field. I like watching baseball live. But I gotta tell you, man, like
I don't even like watching baseball live. I think I'm a hockey football guy. I used to be able to go watch any sport live. Like I watch soccer live. I can't watch it on TV. But baseball, man, you can give me free beer. You can be buying beers the whole time. I'm bored as can be at baseball. That is a slowing. I'd rather watch sloths freaking date each other. I mean,
yeah.
it's freaking.
But this is. I know my $2 is not that much, but the reality is like when you start putting your agenda ahead of your consumers' dollars. I'm not saying people aren't supporting it because they're racist. I'm saying people aren't supporting it because they might disagree. Like I just want to watch hockey, and I'll tell you this right now: if the Dallas Stars came out and took a knee and said, "Hey, due to the oppression of blah 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 blah, we can't in good conscience play," I'd be like, "All right, well, I've had season tickets for 10 years.
Yeah.
I guess the streak is broken."
Yep.
Like,
Hey, I didn't know. I see John Kaiser writing. I didn't know you met Nolan Ryan. Nolan Ryan and my dad were business partners.
dude,
I knew
you wanna
Nolan
hear
Ryan when I was a kid in Arizona. I was in elementary school when I first met him.
So here, true Toby Nunn story, and we'll end the show with this because this is a funny one. This is a good way to end. All right, so I'm at Fort Hood. I'm representing Fort Hood in the 3 Corps in terms of the better opportunity for single soldiers.
Boss program.
I'm working, and the good old boss program, and I'm working for this guy, Lieutenant General Leon J. Laporte, little New Hampshire Bulldog, great guy, one of the greatest military men and minds I ever met. His wife Judy, one of the nicest ladies, one of the best leaders I ever came across my entire career. And he's like, "Sergeant Nunn, here's your task. We're going to watch the Round Rock Express. They're doing this military appreciation. They're doing the special thing for us. We got this many tickets," and it was like 400 or something tickets. Uh, and let's coordinate transportation. Let's coordinate food. Let's coordinate all these things, and let's fill the seats with a bunch of deserving soldiers. This is your job. Make it happen. And we also need to provide a color guard and someone to sing the national anthem. So, like, pretty big program. Now, the Third Armor Corps doesn't have its own honor guard, but there's an honor guard on Fort Hood. At least at the time, there was an honor guard on Fort Hood from the Third Signal Brigade that was pretty good, and they had really good DNC, and they did some neat stuff. So, like, I got them on the tasker, got them spooled up. I hired a female lieutenant. I didn't hire. I had a female lieutenant tasked to sing the national anthem without listening to her, based on the fact that she was a West Pointer and was classically trained. I just assumed that she was really good, and she was, except I was not expecting the opera rendition of the Star Spangled Banner, nor was anyone in the crowd or the boss. And then as we're there, it was a hard night because, like, I gave all the tickets to sergeants major, right? So I went to all the sergeants major of all the major subordinate commands, and I gave them packages of the tickets. I divided the tickets up based on a per capita basis of their population, and we were expecting a bunch of soldiers to fill the thing. And what ended up happening is we had a bunch of sergeants major, their families and their brother-in-laws and stuff, like, in the stands instead of soldiers. And the buses that we arranged were like half empty, and people showed up in POVs, and like, so that didn't go over very well. But right before the game, Sergeant Major of the Army Kid is there, and he's talking to this gentleman in this room, and they're like talking about it. And Sergeant Major of the Army Kid is going to throw out the first pitch, and he's arranged, for throwing out the ceremonial first pitch of the game. But Sergeant Major of the Army Kid, being the fine, outstanding, distinguished non-commissioned officer that he is like, while I appreciate the honor, I think it would be more fitting that if we had a soldier throw it out, it would be more meaningful. And it was like, hey, Sergeant Nunn. And I was a young buck sergeant, and he was like, hey, Sergeant Nunn, how about you throw out the first pitch? And I was like, a nice, starch parade rest, going like, Sergeant Major, while I appreciate the offer, please understand that I'm Canadian. I'm not familiar with this sport, and the only thing I know how to throw are grenades. And so, like, I'm probably not your guy. Let me go find you someone. No, you're going to be our guy. We don't got time for all that. And I'm like, well, I don't know anything about it. And so this gentleman that he's with is like, it's not really that hard. You stand over here. It's this many feet. The ball weighs this amount, and you look where you're throwing and you throw it. And I'm like, well, that's like a grenade, And
as long as you weren't out on the mound doing the,
right. So, like, I was like, all right, like, sir, I appreciate the offer, but again, Sergeant Major, this is all you. This is your honor. This is your moment. You can do it. And so, like, I'm like bobbing and weaving. I got other things going on. I'm coordinating all these different things. I'm kind of like, like, I'm the execution arm of this operation right now.
Yeah, you're XOing it. You're making it happen.
And I'm like getting after it. And last minute, right before, so the honor guard are all queued up, and their rehearsals are done. They're getting ready to come out. And they bring out this guy, and he's blind. And it's like, hey, everybody, this is, I can't remember the guy's name. He's with Make-A-Wish. He's blind, and it's his dream to throw the opening pitch it's his dream to throw a pitch at a professional baseball game. And I was like, man, how cool is that? So, like, the Sergeant Major and him, like, kind of go out there. And, again, this gentleman keeps talking to me. He's like, all right, this is what you need to do. See where they're at, just look here, throw here. And I was kind of like, hey, man, like, I appreciate it. But, like, I'm not going to throw this pitch. I'm like Canadian. I don't even like baseball, like, to be honest with you. And, like, of course, situational awareness on my young buck sergeant self was like low, because I was like focused on what was actually going to get my ass chewed in my mind.
Right.
So, like, they get on the loudspeaker, right? They do the honor guard. We get the national anthem, which is an operetta version. So
you're losing points already.
I'm getting some weird looks from the CG. I'm getting some weird looks from the Corps Sergeant Major. Like, what are you thinking, Nunn? And Sergeant Major of the Army kid was like, well, that was kind of long. And so the Sergeant Major of the Army and this guy and an assistant with him, a helper, a handler, go with him, and they kind of go out, and I'm kind of like trailing along, to make sure everyone gets out there. And so is this other civilian gentleman. And so like the Sergeant Major of the Army, they introduce him, they say who he is, and like the catcher waves at him, and he throws like a pretty solid pitch. Like, I'll be honest with you, like it went in the general direction of the catcher. It was like fairly on target. It had a decent velocity. I was like, like I gave it the old applaud. I was like, that was pretty good. And then like this blind guy gets up there, and they like lined him, and in my heart, I'm like, this is awesome. This guy's getting his make a wish, his dream. But I was curious because I'm like, he has no idea, he's blind. Like, and so like, dude, they like his handler lines him up and like moves his arm and kind of is like, all right, this is where you're at. And man, like this blind dude like reels back, like straight up Charlie Sheen out of like major league form. And he throws the heater, Ricky. Like he just like slams it in there, and you hear it like slap the mitt, like flap. And I was like, holy shit. Like, like I was so happy for the dude. Like, how awesome is that? Like, this is dude's his dream, like in his life. He's blind, and he's like out there in the crowds. And I was like, they're so awesome. And they're like, and now, and they introduced me.
Sergeant Toby Nunn, Canadian.
And I was like, they probably mispronounced it. It was probably Toby Nunn or Tubby Nunn or something. They always say my name wrong on anytime I get introduced. And I was like, oh snap. Like I had no intention. And this
a blind guy just rocketed that thing in.
And this blind dude just throws in a heater. So Sergeant Major of the Army kid, solid throw, blind dude, badass throw. And now I got to follow up. I got to close it. And like, I got this civilian dude like looking at me. He's like, yeah, you can do this. And I was
the civilian guy you told that you didn't even like baseball.
Yeah. Like, and so like this dude like looks at me, and I'm
if it's who I think it is a pretty tall, pretty impressive dude,
right? And so like this was really like my first time like messing with a baseball, and it's like, okay, all right. And so like I grenaded in there, and it's like a high lob, and like the pitcher has to come out of his stance, and he has to work on his vertical to kind of catch it because it was going past him at a a high arc, but he gets it.
But you didn't bounce it in.
I didn't bounce it in. It was overshot because I was throwing it like a grenade, but like grenades got a little bit of weight, and you got to put some arm. Like this thing, like there's not much to it. And then like I like we like, and I make some like smart ass comment because like I'm defensive and I like feel bad, Sergeant Major of the Army kid is kind of like, you really are like Canadian, like making fun of me. And the whole time, like the dude that was giving me pitching advice and all this stuff was like the owner of the team, Nolan Ryan, and they were like, so Mr. Ryan, and they like keep saying it, and like I didn't put two and together, and then finally someone's like, dude, like. That's Nolan Ryan. And I was like, yeah.
Champion pitcher of the Houston Astros.
And I was like, yeah, who's that? And then, like the funny thing is like someone, later on, there was some like shenanigans, some talk or whatever. And, he said something, and all I could think of was like, oh, you're the dude that got in that fight.
But anyway, and you're the dude whose whole life is baseball. I told you I didn't even like baseball.
yeah. like hey, you probably got the wrong guy. It's not going to make an impact on me. But the
chat room's blowing up over this. Good story, man. We need more of these every once in a while. But glad to know you didn't bounce it. There's some accusations in there that you bounced it in.
No, like the old cricket style.
Yeah, you could have done that. That's bouncing it in. But yeah, so again, another way our paths have crossed in the path. Like I said, I as a little kid, I got pictures of me and Nolan Ryan when my dad didn't work together.
If there was an opportunity like for me to make an absolute ass of myself, like I've done it. You know, like
that was one of the times.
yeah, and the best part was I did it. You know, like I don't know how like Jen Laporte even like dealt with me because like I embarrassed that dude so many freaking times. Like, you know, like I, I was just I must have been a nightmare, just a PR
They
nightmare
just wrote
because
you. Well, he's Canadian. We give him a break. He
that's
doesn't know it.
something.
He doesn't know any better. He just tells us he's sorry a lot. We don't know,
So
but
sorry, sorry.
but awesome.
But
Well, yeah, it's a shame. And to wrap this up, right? You know, you talked about it. Whether it's basketball teams that are walking off, ESPN sportscasters that are walking off, baseball teams that are walking off and dropping BLM jerseys on home plate when they do whatever. We've talked about this well before this all happened. We've talked about a lot with Hollywood and musicians. Like, I don't want your opinion. I don't care what your opinion is. I don't care if you date chicks or dudes. I like your music. Just sing. Just act. Just play, swing, hit, shoot, whatever it is you do. I don't care about what everything else you think. I'll care about it if we become friends, right? And even then, I'll still respect that we have different opinions. You and I are friends with some folks like that are very popular and A-listers, and it's like that's cool. That's fine, you know. But I don't need to hear like you don't need to hear mine, right?
yeah,
And but
the we spend too much time giving voice and platform to the wrong people. You know, like now if your job is to like go out and inspire and like be an activist or whatever, like cool, man, like that's your thing.
right,
It, it, if your job is to throw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball and that's your job, you know, like, and you have that talent, you have that ability, you know, God bless you, do it. You got the ability to be a two-way centerman and get back on that odd man rush, like, man, God bless you. Like, thank you, you know, for inspiring, you know, like kids to like work harder, inspiring kids to like follow their dreams. But I gotta tell you, like, that's not gonna appeal to that many people. I think they're worried about donor dollars and sponsor dollars. Um, and like they're gonna lose a lot more than that.
right.
They're playing in a bubble right now without fans, but I got to tell you, like, man, all these sports are going to, including hockey, are going to take dings. They're going to take dings at the gate, and you know they're going to take dings on merchandise. Um,
Well, I mean, they're going to take dings for a while. About they're not going to be able to pack as many seats, right? I
yeah,
mean, even if they sold out, if they sell out where people have to be 6 feet apart, it's going to be a 40 to 50% of what normal, right? Those arenas are
yeah,
going to be at 8,000 to 9,000 people max,
yeah, they're
unless a
going to take
vaccine
dings.
comes out or
Yeah.
people feel comfortable or whatever.
Hey, did Rob? Can you did we find out who the 1,000 person was?
If we didn't, we'll have to find that out. I don't know if you found
Yeah,
that or not, but
yeah. If not, like I know we've been going for an hour and a half, so we got to get going. I got stuff going
yep.
down. So
Yep. So, well, hey, great show. We covered a lot. There was a lot to cover. We knew there was more than we even had time for, even though we still went a half hour over. There was more topics, but want to thank everyone for tuning in and for giving us some of your Thursday evening, especially on this night of the fourth night of the RNC and with a whole bunch of other news happening and hurricanes and all that kind of stuff. So, want to thank everyone for doing that. Want to continue to send our thoughts and prayers to those that have been affected by this storm. And that are still in the way of the storm because it's not over yet. And just hope people stay safe. Listen to the warnings. Do the right thing. Don't get stubborn. Don't be dumbasses. And save yourself for a better day. But Toby, any other final words?
no, that's it, man. Be good to each other. I put a video up last weekend about a customer service call I had that was pretty impactful to me. If you get a chance, go check it out. But the gist of it is like, man, we just need to be better human beings to each other. We need to take a few moments and process information. We don't need to jump to conclusions. Um, you know, like a lot of these scenarios, if we didn't just jump to conclusions, if we believe the best in our neighbor versus hoping for the worst, this country is going to be a lot better position. So I'm making the choice to do everything I can to believe the best in my neighbors, and hoping for the best for my friends and family. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you, good bud, and thank you everyone for joining us. We will see you guys next Thursday here on Stu and the Nunn. Be sure and check us out 8:00 Eastern. And until then, everyone stay safe and keep on doing what you're doing. So, with that, we'll bid everyone a good night. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stu and the Nunn Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenunn.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.